For more on the wider issues at play here, I want to bring in Lee Kim. She is the Director of Privacy and Security with the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society. Lee, thank you very much for taking the time. So what makes healthcare networks inviting targets for cyber and ransomware attacks?
So in terms of healthcare organizations, let me be clear that the fortitude, the strength of the security of healthcare organizations certainly varies across the board. There are certainly larger organizations that have really good, robust security controls in place. However, there are, just like any other business, a lot of small and medium-sized organizations, hospitals and such, that may not have as robust security. And I could say that regardless of whether it's healthcare or otherwise, the weak point that every organization has, no matter which industry you're in, is that there are people at the helm. And people are frequently the weakest link in terms of security. And we found that generally, phishing is the number one way in which these attackers are typically able to get into systems, because we're frankly behind, we're sitting inside the organizations. The attackers can bypass the tough security controls on the outside, and if they're able to fool us, then unfortunately they're able to get in. So I just wanted to highlight that grave threat that we all have in terms of phishing and the escalating sophistication of that.
Does the fact that we're in a pandemic make these networks even more susceptible as a target?
Absolutely. The very fact that our understanding of what the perimeter is of healthcare organizations has changed in light of the pandemic certainly is very much a quintessential thing. So in other words, there are many other endpoints that we have that are now decentralized as opposed to just simply being under one roof, and you know exactly what devices are connected when and for what purpose. Given the pandemic, there's more remote work that is happening. There's more decentralized care. There are even televisits in the patient's home. So all these points that are decentralized away from the premises certainly presents a challenge.
I hadn't thought of that. Good. That sounds like a good point. And it's not just healthcare networks. In the U.S., school districts, gas companies have been hit. Are attackers getting more sophisticated?
Attackers are indeed getting more sophisticated, but I have to highlight that so are we in terms of our defenses. But regardless, attackers are evolving their techniques such that in terms of the phishing that we've experienced, it's now multi-dimensional, right? Not only do we get email phishing, but we may also see the same attacker try to target a person or a unit through social media as well. We may also see text messages that try to, such as smishing, that will target that individual or unit. So we're seeing a coordinated, sophisticated, multi-angle attack in terms of phishing. And what's next, in fact, unfortunately for us in healthcare and also for all industries, frankly, is the threat of deepfake phishing as well.
So what's the hacker's intent? Is it to make money, disrupt lives, endanger lives?
The hope, of course, for us on healthcare is that that no patient is ever at risk like that. What we're seeing, however, at least statistically, is that generally the target of these attackers tend to be disrupting our business operations, disrupting our IT operations primarily. Clinical disruption, does it happen? Yes, but that's why many healthcare organizations have arrangements such as mutual aid and otherwise, where they have colleagues that will help them out in times of need. So I have to say that, it certainly is varied such as that.
What generally can we do to secure our networks, not just healthcare, but say local, provincial governments, utility companies, university campuses?
Sure, absolutely. So the number one thing that we need to do is ensure that our training for both end users and also for IT security professionals is always happening. I would contend at least that once a year training is not enough. And I would beg of everyone, if you could please do this to have security awareness more top of mind, such as at least quarterly, if not monthly or more frequently. Because if we just make it simply once a year, I always like to ask people, well, do you remember what happened in your life 1 year ago? Chances are probably not, unless it's something very significant. And that's how I view security awareness education. You need to do that regularly, and we need to actually be learning and on top of things as much as, unfortunately, people on the bad side are being trained and educated. So we need to up our game, so to speak, as far as that is concerned. And furthermore, we need to also keep in mind the basics of good security practices. So before we start implementing the advanced controls, we need to have firewalls and encryption in place and risk assessments and all the basic stuff that needs to be in place, and certainly defense in depth, so that there are multiple layers and we make it as difficult and out of reach as possible for these bad actors, so that we protect our most vital thing of all, which in healthcare, of course, is our patients, as well as their information, and other industries, the lifeblood of what makes those industries and sectors tick.
Lee, thank you. Lee Kim is the Director of Privacy and Security with the Healthcare Information and Management Systems Society.